In this video, we're going to talk about factoring trinomials. Right? First, let's make sure you understand what this word means. What's a trinomial? Right? A trinomial is a polynomial that has three terms. Right? It's a polynomial that has three terms. So an example of that would be something like this: x squared plus 5x minus 24. Right? That's a trinomial. It's got three terms. Here's the first term, x squared, second term, 5x, third term, minus 24. All right, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be factoring it. We're going to be taking this and turning it into a multiplication problem. Right? The answer for this one is x plus 8 times x minus 3. Right? And I'm going to show you how to do that in a little bit, but first let's just make sure we understand this. Right? So let me repeat that. Right? So we're taking this trinomial and factoring it, turning it into a multiplication problem. And here's the answer. How do we know that's right? Well, if you wanted, you could check it. Right? So if I were to multiply x plus 8 times x minus 3, that would be x squared minus 3x plus 8x minus 24, which does simplify to be x squared plus 5x minus 24. Right? So that does check out. All right. I'm going to kind of do a little bit more with this little preview. Right? Before we actually go step by step, let me kind of talk about what's going to happen. If we want to factor something like this, x squared plus 5x minus 24, here's what's going to happen. What we want to do is first rewrite this a little bit differently. The first term is going to stay the same. The third term is going to stay the same. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of rewrite this middle term. And what's going to happen is instead of writing 5x, I'm going to write this, plus 8x minus 3x. And I'll talk about where those come from a little bit later. But first, let's talk about why would that help. Why would it help to change 5x into this, 8x minus 3x? Right? Because I didn't really change the value. Right? 5x, that's the same thing as 8x minus 3x. But why would that be helpful? Well, it's because now that I have written this in four terms, I can use grouping. Right? I can factor these two together and these two together. The first two, I can factor that as x times x plus 8. And then back here, I can pull out a negative 3 times x plus 8. And now I have x groups of x plus 8 minus 3 groups of x plus 8. So that's the same thing as saying x minus 3 groups of x plus 8. Right, which is the final answer. Okay, so the key thing is this step right here, right, and that's what I'm going to talk about in the next slide. Okay, let's factor this one, 3x squared plus 14x plus 8. Okay, and if you remember from what I said in the last slide, what we want to do is this 3x squared is going to be the same, and this plus 8 is going to be the same. All right, and what I want to do is I want to change this 14x. I want to rewrite 14x a different way. Right? How do I figure out that? Right? Well, we're going to use our magic x trick, magic x tool. Right? And here's how this works. This middle term, 14x, that's going to go on the bottom. And what's going to go on the top is the product of 3x squared and 8. Right? If you multiply 3x squared and 8, you're going to get 24x squared. All right, and now we're ready to do our magic x tool. Right, so let's remember the expression on top, that's the product, and 14x, that's going to be the sum. So I'm looking for two expressions whose product is 24x squared and whose sum is 14x. Right, well, the answer here is 12x and 2x. Why? Because 12x times 2x is 24x squared, and 12x plus 2x is 14x. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to replace 14x with these two terms. Right, I'm going to write it in here. It's going to be plus 12x and plus 2x. Right, it's really important that you realize I haven't really changed the problem, because 12x plus 2x, that's the same thing as 14x. I've just rewritten it a different way. Right? Why did I rewrite it this way? Well, it's because now I can do this by grouping. I can factor by grouping. So let's look at the first two terms, and then we'll look at the second two terms. If we were to factor the first two terms, I can pull out a 3x. And we'd have 3x times x plus 4. In the back, this would be plus 2 times x plus 4. Right? And now let's see, what do I have? 3x groups of x plus 4 plus 2 groups of x plus 4. So that would be 3x plus 2 groups of x plus 4. And that's the answer. Right? If you don't believe me, multiply this out, and you should get 3x squared plus 14x plus 8. All right, let's do another one. We've got x to the 6th minus 8x cubed minus 20. All right, so remember, this x to the 6th is going to stay the same. This minus 20 is going to stay the same. What's going to be different is we want to rewrite negative 8x cubed a different way. Okay, so let's do our magic x. Negative 8x cubed is going to be on the bottom. And then what's going to be on top? The product of x to the 6th and negative 20. The product of the first and last term. So that's going to be negative 20 x to the 6th. Okay, now we're ready to do our magic x. We need to think about two expressions whose product is negative 20x to the 6th and whose sum is negative 8x cubed. All right, can you please pause and try to think about what would work here? Okay, let's check, see if you got it. So this should be negative 10x cubed and 2x cubed. Why does that work? Because negative 10x cubed times 2x cubed is negative 20x cubed. And then if you add these, negative 10x cubed plus 2x cubed, you get negative 8x cubed. So these two are going to move here, are going to be rewritten here. So let's put that here. We've got negative 10x cubed plus 2x cubed. Right? Again, all I've done is just rewritten negative 8x cubed a different way. That's negative 8x cubed plus 2x cubed. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and finish this. So let's factor the first two terms and the last two terms. For the first two terms, I can pull out x cubed. And then I would be left with x cubed minus 10. For the back, I would have plus 2 times x cubed minus 10. Right? So now I have x cubed groups of x cubed minus 10 plus 2 groups of x cubed minus 10. So the final answer would be x cubed plus 2 times x cubed minus 10. Okay, you're going to try this one on your own. All right, first let me make sure you have the beginning set up. Okay, so the 3x squared is going to stay the same. The negative 6 is going to stay the same. What we're going to try to do is rewrite 7x a little differently. Okay, for your magic x, 7x, the middle term has to be here. And on the top, it has to be the product of the first and last terms. So this is going to be negative 18x squared. Okay, now I would like you to pause and try this on your own. Let's see how you did. Okay, so what are the two pieces for our magic x? It's going to be 9x and negative 2x. Because 9x times negative 2x is negative 18x squared, and 9x plus negative 2x is 7x. So this should be plus 9x minus 2x, right? Which makes sense because these two add up to be 7x. Now let's factor by grouping. Let's factor the first two terms, and then we'll factor the last two terms. So 3x squared plus 9x, that factors as 3x times x plus 3. The back factors as negative 2 times x plus 3. So we have 3x groups of x plus 3 minus 2 groups of x plus 3, which is the same thing as saying 3x minus 2 groups of x plus 3. All right, one last one. And again, I would like you to try this one on your own. This time, do the whole thing on your own from scratch. All right, please pause and finish this. All right, please check your work with what I have. right? So x to the 8th is going to stay the same. Negative 9 is going to stay the same. Let's do our magic x. The bottom here is going to be the middle term, negative 8x to the 4th. The top is going to be the product of the first and last terms. So it should be negative 9x to the 8th. So I need to figure out what two things will multiply to be negative 9x to the 8th and add up to be negative 8x to the 4th. All right, this one might have tricked you a little bit, okay? But the two terms, the two expressions would be negative 9x to the 4th and 1x to the 4th. Sometimes that one's, the obvious one is a little bit, sometimes we overlook that, right? But it makes sense because negative 9x to the 4th times 1x to the 4th is negative 9x to the 8th. And then negative 9x to the 4th plus 1x to the 4th, that's negative 8x to the 4th. All right, we're ready to finish this. So this, we would replace the middle term with negative 9x to the 4th plus 1x to the 4th. All right, let's finish this factor by grouping. Let's factor the first two terms, and we'll factor the last two terms. All right, so for the first two, we can pull out an x to the 4th. And then I'm going to end up with x to the 4th minus 9. In the back, I would have plus 1 times x to the 4th minus 9. All right, so that's a little tricky there. All right, the only thing you can pull out is a positive 1. So plus 1 times x to the 4th minus 9. All right, lastly, let's finish this. I've got x to the 4th, groups of x to the 4th minus 9, plus one group of x to the 4th minus 9. So that means I have x to the 4th plus one group of x to the 4th minus 9. All right, now, did you get this? First of all, make sure you understand how to get this. But then, hopefully you noticed, this one, there's actually one more step. Because we could factor x to the 4th minus 9 one more time. So the final answer here would be x to the 4th plus 1 times x squared minus 3 times x squared plus 3. There's your answer. See you in class.